Hello everyone, welcome to my masterclass on how to exploit ACR MTT bots, because apparently that's where we are at in 2024. Before I start, I want to apologize for my voice. I got a bit of a cold, so hopefully it's not too bad. Anyway, if you don't know, on 3rd of January this year, Tyler RM made a thread on 2plus2 with a list of MTT and cash game bots on ACR, who allegedly took around $10 million from the site. You can read it there, you can watch a Duckbox video on YouTube, you can watch the Only Friends Poker podcast, and so on. In summary, this is a real thing. It is not somebody's paranoia. Tyler is experienced in this. He caught many bots for other sites. As far as I know, 888 Poker even pays him for it. My own research confirms the same nicknames like his does. So far, out of the hundreds of suspected nicknames, as far as I know, there wasn't a single human player coming forward to say that they are on the list unjustly. You know, what are the chances of that? And while ACR did ban a bunch of the bots since then, they are incredibly slow with it, often taking weeks or even months. And a lot of the bots are still playing. So I decided to make a coaching video on how to play against them. I actually had several private requests for this type of coaching video, but I decided this should be a free public video. I don't really want to make money out of this. I think everyone should be able to fight back against bots. I will not be showing too many detailed sets, as I don't want to make this an instructional video for the bot developers on how to make their bots harder to detect. Instead, I will focus on some easy to follow exploits that players of all levels can incorporate into their play. Who am I and why should you trust a judgment of somebody that has 12 YouTube subscribers? My name is Wojciech. I'm a tournament player and a coach behind the mttdatabasereview.com website. I coach players of all levels, from micro stakes to super high levels. You can watch a few of the testimonials I have on the site, but I've coached hundreds of players, and I do database reviews, as the name suggests, which means I know what stats should look like, when to deviate, when how to exploit them if they look differently, and so on. So if you want to find your leaks, if you want to improve, hit me up. But back to the main topic, I want to mention a couple of things. First, ACR is not rigged. I've seen a lot of posts lately because of this whole drama. Started with a bot thread. People are showing how they lost against somebody who raised call 8-7 suited from early position for 30 blinds. Being rigged, RTA or bots and all of that, these are very different things. And I'm 99% sure ACR is not rigged. That's something completely different. I'm also 99% sure GG is not rigged, PokerStars is not rigged, 888 Poker is not rigged, iPoker is not rigged, right? So don't mix that up. They have a huge bot problems for sure, but I'm like pretty much sure it's not rigged. Another thing that a lot of people think is that these are house bots and they're not banned because they made them themselves. They're not. First, because I can guarantee you nobody in ACR is competent enough to make a bot. And also because this is, if you read the 2plus2 thread, this is apparently a Russian operation, Russian bot ring. There's some more information on it. And they play on more sites. I think on 888 they stopped because they were getting banned too much. And as far as I know, they still play on GG a little bit, but not so many of them. And they are getting banned much quicker, from what I heard from Tyler, than on ACR. The problem, however, is that ACR is clueless. They don't really have any way to detect bots clearly. So it's up to the players to give them a list of names, and then after several weeks, hopefully they ban them. I'm going to show you a list of the bots at the end. Also, you can download hand-tuned alias, which will put all of the nicknames together, and then when you play on the table, you will see immediately that somebody is a bot, and you will be able to play against them correctly. So Let's look at some of the stats. First, just to show how much they open raise. And by the way, they don't limp. So it's just open raises. On the left, this is roughly GTO numbers, how much you should be opening from different positions at shallow and a little bit deeper. And as you can see, what the bots really like is raising a lot on the three latest positions, hijack, cutoff, and button, especially more deeper stacked. So you can immediately know that you can attack this more, you can 3-bet this more, you can defend more, and just not take their raises as seriously. Next, fold against a 3-bet. This is fold against a non-all-in 3-bet, where there are some filters on it. So your stats in your tracker might be a little bit different. But the main number here is this 51, which is a little bit on the higher side, but nothing too extreme for a fold against a non-all-in 3-bet. But it is much higher when they raise from button or cutoff, especially against a big blind. They seem to be extremely afraid of big blind 3-bets, especially at the stack size, like 35 blinds, where when they raise from any stack size, any position, they fold 74. So you can really go very, very wide with your 3-bets there. Next, they are also folding way too much against c-bets. So if they defend their big blind in a single raise spot, they will fold 58% against a c-bet. That should be only roughly around 44. If they flat on the small blind, then against a c-bet they're folding 47, which should be somewhere roughly around 40. The specific numbers depend on what kind of opponents you're playing, if they're going for a lot of big sizings or not, etc. But these are very, very clear overfolds. Also, when they flat in position, so for example, button flat against a hijack open, against a c-bet they are folding 39, and that should be again around 10% less than that. They also overfold against flop raise. So if they c-bet against a big blind or small blind, then against a non-all-in check raise, they fold around 46%, which is around 10% higher than it should be. Again, dependent on the average stakes you're playing, if people check raise a lot or not. But yeah, it's still a very clear overfold. And when they c-bet against a flatter, which they do 71% of the time, for example, low jack open, cutoff flat, and they c-bet 71. That's roughly almost double of what it should be. If they get raised, they fold 50%, and that should be somewhere in high 30s. They also check fold the flop too much against the in-position flatter. So again, if they raise on cutoff, for example, and you flat a button, and they check, you need to bluff everything that you have, because they are check folding 56%. That should be much lower, only around 35%. Here's a little example on the fold against check raises, because not only they fold too much, but very clearly they fold more when they make a big c-bet. So here we have all the c-bets against a big blind or against a small blind. And you can see, for example, at 40 blinds plus, they are c-betting 78% of the time. And it's all of these sizings, right? And this is how often they fold against a check raise. This is how often they go for a turn c-bet. And you can see that whenever they go for smaller sizings, like 1/3, they don't fold as much. But all of the really big sizings against either big blind or small blind are falling almost all of the time. So you can attack that a lot. Don't be afraid when they bet 2/3 of the pot or more. So that we've seen them overfolding in some spots, but they are also they can be pretty aggressive when you play passively. So if you open and they flat in position and you don't c-bet, they are betting 56%, and it should be around 50. So that's not too extreme, but they are overfolding against that spot, in that spot against a c-bet, while at the same time betting too much when you check. So if you have a good hand, you want to let them bluff. And one more example of a pretty extreme line is if you limp small blind and they check back on the big blind and you check on the flop, they will bet 89% of the time when it should be only 40%. And at the same time, if you would c-bet, they would massively overfold. So again, in this spot, you really want to trap and let them bluff. Also, they love going for probe bets if you miss c-bet against a big blind or against a small blind, which with the better hands you often should be doing because they're overfolding. Here you can see some of the details of sizings and how often they go for a river c-bet. That's actually pretty low river c-bet frequency, so they kind of go for one step and not very big. They don't use any overbets at all on turn. These numbers should be somewhere around 40%. So if you have a very strong hand, you're not gonna get them to. They will never think that you're capped and start overbetting, but they will go for these smaller steps. So especially if you have a hand where you think it's a little bit behind, between going for a thin value bet, value c-bet on the flop, or check and start bluff catching. Against these bots, you should definitely go for the bluff catching. And while they fold a lot on the flop in pretty much almost all instances, they don't like folding on the turn. So, for example, in a very common spot, if they defend big blind and call a c-bet on the flop, against which they overfold, their fold against the turn c-bet is only 40%. That should be in high 40s up to 50%. Exact number depends on how often your opponents go for overbets. But it's a pretty low fold. Also, it's similar to when they are on the small blind. And one very extreme line that I found is that when they open and call a 3-bet from big blind or small blind, and they call, which we know they overfold against, especially against the big blind one, and they call a flop c-bet, then on the turn, if you bet again, they fold only 14%, while it should be somewhere around 40. So that is not a good line to be making big bluffs. They also don't like to fold on the river. Their overall river defend, which means call or raise against a single bet in a heads-up pot, is 60%. That should be generally in high 40s. Depending on your play style, it could be even 50 or a little bit over, but 60 is definitely a lot. Probably the most extreme line I found is when they defend against a probe. So if they raise, for example, hijack, big blind defense, and they don't check back, they don't c-bet, they check back, then they actually have pretty low, kind of a low fold against the probe bet on the turn. And then if you bet the river, they defend 81% of the time when it should be something around 50, right? So this is because they are just completely unbalanced on the flop. They are betting the bluffs. They're betting the, they make bigger sizing with bluffs also, but when they don't c-bet, they tend to have it more often. So not a good spot to be bluffing. Also, when they check raise on the river, they're extremely strong. They are winning more than 80% of showdowns when they raise out of position on the river. In position, they're winning around 67, which is kind of standard. That's and there's gonna be bluffs in it, but out of position, it's more than 80%. So there's basically no bluffs with check raises. If they have a bluff, they go for the bet themselves. They don't really go for a check raise. And river bets. I'm not going to show you all of the different sizings, but usually the weakest ones are, usually they bet smaller with bluffs and bigger with value. So the weakest in position non-all-in bets are around 30 to 40% of the pot, and they only win something like 36% of showdowns when they get called. While if they bet something larger, often like 70-75%, they win 76% of the showdowns. So clearly a lot stronger sizing there. Out of position, they're more balanced, but half pots seem to be the weakest. Also, in position check bet bet, which means delay c bet and then bet on the river, is almost always value. They're extremely strong with it because, as you know already, when they don't c bet, they actually have better hands. They c bet all of the weak stuff. So either you go for a pro bet and they call, and then they call on the river again, or or they go for a DLAC bet and then the river bet is almost always value. While check bet lines, both in position and out of position, for example, cutoff against big blind, check bet, or button against small blind, check bet, or out of position, defend big blind and your opponent from the hijack does not see bet, check bet. All of these, they are extremely weak. They are doing it pretty often, and they have very low win rates there. So that's a lot of bluffs, and you can kind of, if you have something that you want to call one bet, you want to let them bluff. It's a pretty good idea to wait till the rivers, and they will give you one street of value. One more thing is they do fall a lot against donk bets, at least against the most common spots, which is single raise spot, against big blind or small blind. Against either of those, they fold 43%, and that should be somewhere in 20s. That depends a lot on what people are doing, and a lot of people are not donking correct sizings and so on, but 43 is very, very high. So you can exploit them in multiple ways, right? For example, if you are big blind against a cutoff open, you can 3-bet them more for sure. You can also defend more, and after you defend, you can go for donk bet if you want, but you can also go for check raise because that's also gonna work better. If they don't see bet, you need to be more careful though. This is a list of them in hand to note. I'm gonna put a link under the video into the description so you can just download this file. Some of these are banned already, they're just not being removed from it. So there's not this many players at once playing on ACR. And by the way, most of these names are from Tyler. I've added a few of them myself too. You can also freely search this player group on Sharkscope to see if they are still playing. A lot of these are banned already, but we can see that even today there's gonna be some of them playing. And you can see that even today, as of recording this video, there are some playing. It's a little bit too... Yeah, I think this one's not updated with some of the new nicknames. These are some bots that I detected around 1 week ago, and probably... I think they still play. Yep, playing today. And that's a bot. If you're watching this video, Micromancy, and you're not a bot, I'm gonna send you 500 bucks. How about this one? Also playing today. Also 500 bucks for you if you're not a bot, but you are. So that's it. This is a YouTube thumbnail that ChatGPT made for me. Pretty good, except there's an extra leg here. They sometimes make changes to their strategies, usually not anything huge, but if there's anything significant, I will either make part 2 or at least I will post it here into comments or the video description, so make sure to check it once in a while. Subscribe if you want, share this video with all of your friends and forums, Twitter, Discords, etc. I think everyone deserves to know how to exploit bots, especially when ACR takes so long with banning them. And actually, after watching this video, you should be very happy if you see any of them on your tablet, because once you know how to play against them, they can be pretty easy money. If you do play against any of them, let me know in the comments. Good luck and go destroy some bots.